Hello, I'm Rachel from Douentza Garden in Ireland, and I think I don't have to tell you that, because if you're watching this video, it's probably because you're a subscriber of mine and you've been watching for some time. Now I have exciting news to share with you today, and that is that we are on our 10-year anniversary. Yes, 10 years this channel has been on YouTube, and I want to take the opportunity to say an enormous, great big thank you to everyone who's watched my videos over the years, who's subscribed, who's liked, who's commented, and even those who've unsubscribed and then come back again. Sure, you know, our lives move in different directions over the course of a lengthy period of time, such as 10 years. Now, you may be wondering why I'm standing here today, and I'm standing here in front of this very autumnal scene in my garden, and that's because one of my very first videos was shot exactly here. So my channel launched on the 3rd of November 2014, and we won't talk about the first video because, you know, one's first video is always a bit of a disaster. But on the 5th, the video I launched was the one shot here, and it was about cutting back for winter. So I thought it would be quite fun to take you down the path that we walked a mere 10 years ago and just have a look at how this part of the garden has changed or not changed in that lengthy period of time. And just before we get into retracing our steps down this path and looking at the plants that were or were not here 10 years ago, just to give you a little bit of a recap and, I guess, explanation of what my motivation was for starting YouTube. And I suppose the first thing anyone is going to notice tuning in now is how I have changed in 10 years. Certainly I'm a lot older, 10 years older to be precise, but I think very much in terms of my motivation for gardening and my attitude to gardening, it has certainly changed a lot over the course of those years. A lot has happened to me personally, but also in gardening terms. And my motivation for originally starting the channel was, I guess, to do with my subtropical plants. So 10 years ago I was very proud of my greenhouse collection, and in fact the very first video I made on the channel was a walk around the newly bubble wrapped glass house, which was winter ready. And in that video I showed you a number of my plants, albeit not in very great detail. I'm not quite sure why I didn't do that. But you know, when we start out on YouTube, we're all so afraid of mispronouncing words or saying something wrong. So I guess that was partly to blame. But certainly I had a lot of gingers. And in that video, I had specifically Hedychium greenii, which was in good flower. And even today, it is also in good flower in the same greenhouse. So my motivation was to share with you the exotic or unusual plants that I was growing in my glass house. And also at that point in time, I'd got my hands on some very unusual seeds. So specifically alocasia. I had gotten my hands on the berries for a very large alocasia, which is now 10 years later just forming a bud to flower, so it has done really well, and Trevesia as well. And with these unusual seeds, I did want to share them and put them out. But as time went on and the channel went on, I realised that nobody was really interested in my greenhouse or in these unusual seeds. And I got a bigger response when I made videos like the one on cutting back for winter and showed this part of the garden. I also got an even bigger response when I published my first orchid video talking about the 13 orchids I had in flower at that point in time. And for a long time, that's the direction my channel took. I talked a lot about orchids, showed a lot about orchids. And yeah, anyway, that's where I started, and today I guess I'm in quite a different place. I think the channel has evolved according to your interests and also according to my interests. So in more later years I've become very actively involved in my garden and very I don't know, just I get a lot of solace from it and I enjoy it a lot. And that tends to be the direction that the channel has taken, and certainly my garden tour videos are quite popular. So if you don't have a YouTube channel, you should know that there is a lot of time where anybody's channel does not very much at all, and that was certainly the case with me. So for a long time I was getting very low numbers of views. And I guess the first big break was a video I made about pruning hydrangeas, which for some reason really took off. And it was a surprise to me because it was to do with outdoor gardening, and it was to do with a subject that I thought was very commonplace, that a lot of people knew about already. So yeah, so I guess from there I started making more videos about that. And I guess one video that stands out as my more popular video is the one where I propagated the banana plant, cut up the whole meristem and propagated it to make lots and lots of hundreds of baby plants, because when people visit my garden very often they ask about that banana plant and say, where are the babies? Can I show you the babies? Can I show them the babies? So in terms of popular videos that I am particularly proud of, because the ones that are popular aren't necessarily the ones that I'm proud of, I guess the one I made about tulips is up there for me, because I did a good bit of research and just thinking about how to put the information together in an easily digestible way when I was making the video. So work went into it, and I feel it's a really good video with good information and the kind of video that I want my channel to be showing going forward. Okay, so I mean that's the backdrop, that's the background, and in front of us we have the garden. And with that in mind, and just bearing in mind the previous video I made about cutting back, let's take a little walk down here. And I think in the last video, the first video that I made, one thing that I mentioned was that you should cut back two types of things in autumn. One, plants that are going to annoy you going through the winter. So plants that when you look out the window and they're flopping about, I think that is the exact term I used, they're going to annoy you. You should cut those back so you don't get annoyed with your garden over the winter. And then the second category of plant that you could cut back in autumn would be those that will allow your spring bulbs to come out and come up unhindered in early spring. I agree with that still today, although I think I have done a little bit more cutting back here than I did in the video that you saw previously. Okay, let's have a look. And one thing I'm particularly happy about is the fact that my Acer Gricium has thickened up and become a much more substantial tree since when you saw it last 10 years ago. Gorgeous, gorgeous peeling bark. And we still have my gargoyles in place. Dr. Acula and Misanthropy pretty much in the same place that they were 10 years ago. And now they're surrounded in some instances by different plants. So over on this side, Dr. Acula is surrounded by the Francoa that I grew from seed. And on this side, it has had a revamp, largely because the plants that were in there got too big and had to be removed and replaced. The campanula that used to be on this side is pretty much all gone, and in its place we have Selena, and also there's a Schefflera there behind. And Disporum is this gorgeous little plant here, which I've chosen not to cut back, and that's because it has gorgeous blackberries in autumn. Now, you may recall how in the video 10 years ago I focused on a beautiful penum that was right here, and it was an amazing clump then, and it went on to be an even more amazing clump. But the sad news is that I lost it just 2 years ago, and what happened was the Stipa gigantea, which is over there, seeded into the middle of the penum. It's impossible to tell one grass from another when not in flower, so I couldn't tell what was what, so I had to dig up and get rid of the penum. Very sad to lose that, but I'll just have to get it again. In its place, I now have a whole load of red monarda here, which has been cut back, so you know, there's not much to see. But one thing that is looking pretty at the moment is back here. And here we have a cute little geranium. This is a relatively new one for me, but I'm really pleased to see flowers so late in the season. What a bonus. And one thing that has changed in the last 10 years is the width of this path. So you will notice it's substantially narrower than it was before, and that happens naturally. This path needs to be cut with a piece of string put down each spring and the edges cut, and then they need to be maintained going through the season. So you can imagine doing that over the course of 10 years. The path is naturally going to lose its width, and that's what's happened here. But also I think that the narrower path makes it more intimate and makes me feel more in touch with the planting. On the corners of these beds I still have my Stipa gigantea, and I still consider it a really good plant for placing in corners. In my YouTube video 10 years ago I talked about how I cut Stipa gigantea to the ground, pretty much to the ground in spring, and that is something I still do. So I can say wholeheartedly that it is a technique that is not going to weaken your Stipa gigantea. This gorgeous tree just over here is the one that produces the dead man's fingers. Well, I know it has a lovely buttery leaf to it at this time of year, but it also produces these seed pods that look like, well, dead man's fingers, I guess. And yes, I still have the dead husks of my tree ferns, the ones that died in the really cold winter of 2009-2010. And they're still holding up. I do like to have these trunks in here as ornamentals. They're beginning to rot now, so I think I'm not going to have them for another 10 years anyway. My Tetrapanax rex was looking well in the video 10 years ago, but it only measured about 5 foot. It was about as tall as I am. Today it's twice that size, and they tower above this path. And moving down here to the very end of the path, we will now have a look at this border here. And you know what? It's had a revamp lately. There are a lot of new plants that have gone in there, but there are some that were here 10 years ago, like the fantastic Sanguisorba over there. Well, as you can see, the Sanguisorba has gone past its best by at this stage, as it had done in the video 10 years ago. So it is in great flower in October, but even now in November there are several new flower spikes and one that is in active flower that are looking brilliant. You may recall this plant in my September garden tour, and it was looking good even then. And my red hot poker, Coalescence, is even bigger than it was 10 years ago, but just doing as well. And this is finished flowering now. I have chosen to deadhead it this year rather than leaving the spikes intact, as I suggested was an option 10 years ago. Other plants, like the bamboo on the left and also on the right, but obscured from sight here at the moment, well, they've been here the longest time, 10 years to be precise. well, at least 10 years. Another important thing that has happened in the last 10 years with the garden is that I now have people in to help with the work, such as Louis here, who's doing a great job of dealing with those fallen leaves. And there we go, time to celebrate 10 years on YouTube. It's been a long time. I certainly feel it's been a long time. I think at this stage that I've been doing YouTube for my whole life, although it's only a portion thereof. I wonder how long you've followed me for, and I would really love if people could jot down below the first video of mine that they ever watched. That will give me some indication of when you started tuning in. Thank you as always for watching. I would like to ask anyone who's watching and isn't subscribed, which is unlikely, but if not, then maybe you consider subscribing, because I hope to hit 60,000 subscribers by Christmas. We're not far off there yet, but there is a little bit more to go. But you know what, subscribing isn't the main thing, is it? It's enjoying videos and finding useful content on there and things that can help us in our own gardens, albeit whether that's through inspiration or through practical tips on how to do certain things. Thank you. Thank you very much for following me, for watching me, and for watching this video. And I hope to see you on the next one. That's all for now. Bye.